Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode, live stream episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today, I wanted to talk about the Rolex Certified Pre Owned program. Um, in fact, I have the press release here right in front of me from the Rolex newsroom. I'm on their website right now. Rolex launches the Rolex Certified Pre Owned program. How elegant program with MME. Rolex is offering the opportunity to purchase from its official retailers pre-owned watches that are certified as authentic and guaranteed by the brand. These timepieces benefit from the exacting quality criteria inherent in all Rolex products and from a 2-year international guarantee valid from their date of resale in the Rolex network. Now, oh, by the way, I'm drinking Paulaner Münchener Hell. Hell means light in German, but it doesn't mean light the way American beer means light. Now, the whole thing about this, hey, Hannes, how's it going, my friend? Um, it opens a lot of questions, right? According to their own website, it's going to be watches that are older than 3 years, and they're going to be tested, and they're going to get paperwork, and they've even made a new little certified pre-owned medallion that's green in the middle and white or like eggshell around the edge. Uh, you'll probably have people arguing what color that is. Um, and a couple of questions come to mind. The first question is this an attempt by Rolex to manipulate the watch market? For good or bad, as a scam or not. They could be legitimately trying to control gray market prices, but with this action, they could also be attempting to, cash in on the whole aspect of the gray market by finding a new venue to dispose of stock. It could be, for example, reworked B goods or something like that. There are some theories that at least the first wave of these pre-owned certified watches will be the for exhibition only watches that we've seen crop up in the last year and a half or so. But the problem with that issue is that it really starts to smell because if they're going to use in-store display stock, industry practice is to mark down display stock and move it out. But if they take display stock, take it back inside, clean it up a little bit, and then resell it at a higher price point to take advantage of the gray market, that sounds like a scam to me. They're not pre-owned. They're not pre-owned. They never went into someone else's hands. They stayed on Rolex shelves, and they went back into Rolex inventory, and then they came back out of Rolex inventory as used, if you go by that theory. All right. I'm not saying that that's what Rolex is doing, but that's one of the theories that has been put out there, that these watches are Rolex. They are going to be the display goods taken back, cleaned up, and put back out again. And if that's the case, then Rolex is committing fraud because they're not pre-owned. They were display goods that have been reconditioned. So let's get that out of the way right away. I strongly doubt that Rolex would do something like that. They're a charitable organization. Don't forget, they don't. They're a nonprofit company. Their executives can get maybe a bonus and a raise and all, but um, you're not gonna be able to pull a billionaire grab at a non. Well, you can pull a millionaire grab at a nonprofit. You can abuse the system quite a bit, but what Rolex is doing, it has more probably to do with the market, market management than trying to get an additional markup on inventory goods, shelf goods. But that does beg the big question: where are they going to get their watches from? Right? Hey, Jonathan Robinson, how you doing? Because that's why some of these watch pundits are saying that they are going to be refurbished shelf product, because that's the only place that they would get a reasonable quantity of product that they could trust. But like I said, that falls into the logic hole of these were not pre-owned products, and Rolex to simply clean up shelf items and then sell them at a higher price point on the gray market would be, at the minimum, taking advantage of the market in a way that would be deemed unhealthy. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to bring legality into it, because the laws apply to those who allow them to apply it to. Um, Unfortunately, in a lot of cases. So in this case, Rolex would have to be pretty egregious in manipulating the marketplace to really be accused of anything heavy duty. But I don't think they're going to use their retail stock as part of their pre-owned program, because, like I said, at the minimum, you could make the accusation that these are not used products by previous ownership. They are used by being handled by a lot of people on the shelf. That's a different thing entirely. So, where are they going to get this product? What do they intend to do with this program? Is it to manage the market, or is it to take advantage of the market? They could theoretically manage it quite well in that sense, because as a manufacturer, they look for different margins. If the company that they're starting the program with, Bucherer has their own used Rolex line, certified by Bucherer as pre-owned. But, they're a retailer. They're used to 100% margin. Manufacturers aren't used to 100% margin. They're used to a significantly lower margin, sometimes as low as 25, 30%, sometimes lower. But if you're making less than 35% as a manufacturer, you're in a specialty market where the cash flow is such that it's worth it, that you're making 5 points, like car manufacturing or something along those lines, because the industry and the cash flow is so large that the margin is half of the not even half of the issue. But in something where you're manufacturing luxury goods, the margin is all of the issue. It's all about the dollar dollar. And so, Rolex could theoretically, on a positive side, start this program, mark their product at the bottom end of the gray market, or even go below the gray market. In other words, tack on their markup, which would still bring it below gray market. And they could use that to stabilize the industry. Or they could tag the product at the top end of the gray market pricing and reap that cash, as it were. Um, I would hope that they went for the market leading instead of the market tailing aspect of it, but they could theoretically do a lot to stop the flippers and stop the speculators from causing these huge market sweeps. If they trail the market, they would just be taking advantage of the same market sweeps that the scammers and the flippers are taking advantage of. But if they accepted the fact that they're making a lower margin as a manufacturer on these goods, and it's in their interest to control the industry, they should be able to introduce that product, a reliable product, a superior product at a reasonable price point. Because don't forget, with all of this rending of clothes and hemming and hawing about the price of Rolex, we're still talking about after retail, higher than retail prices, even at the lowest end. All right. Rolex is still not hurting in the retail store. There's still I've been on a waiting list for over a year for an Air King, you know? So don't cry any tears for Rolex in that sense. They're selling every watch they make. This is about the stuff that is either falling out of the back of ADs, which is, I think, should be their primary concern, that this certified pre-owned program is going to be used to control and manage the market in a healthy way, and not to just take advantage of all of the vampirism going on and parasitism going on. Milad Sky, how's it going? We gathered again. You're right, my friend. Glad to have you all here. It's wonderful. Neil Bailey, how's it going, Neil? Just getting sick of Rolex, you and me both. Actually, I haven't had a Rolex episode recently. I only mentioned it I only had this one because of the market. As most of you know, I like to do long tail content and talk about watch collecting and serious stuff about watches, but this is a new program. It really is changing the marketplace, and so I felt I had to say something about it. But I will say, wristwatch check. I'm wearing my. Doesn't that look beautiful? The Longines um, Zulu Time GMT. It really is sharp. I have it on the leather. As I had said, I bought this watch, and it took a while to get to me. So they sent me the leather strap version, and then they sent me the metal strap separately for free. So I believe it was Bogner. I said it in the episode where I talk about it, but I believe it was. They did good by me on this watch. But see, and that's the thing. It's about service. A lot of these flippers and a lot of these gray market dealers don't offer any kind of warranty, don't offer any kind of guarantee, don't offer any kind of uh, security. So out of the gate, Rolex is going to have an advantage over those people just because it's Rolex. So theoretically, Rolex could put them all down, because if they come out and they price it 20% below what the flippers are pricing it at, Rolex would still make money, and the flippers would be priced out because they wouldn't be making enough margin to make it worth their while for the value of the merchandise that they're moving. It really is a serious issue. And, it's a serious issue for everybody. I mean, I recognize Rolex positions themselves as a luxury product, but they got there on the backs of, mainstream watch buyers and watch collectors, divers and pilots and journeyman workers and, scientists and people who really used the watches for the reason they were built and not just to flex them in a party. So Rolex owes the industry, and they've kind of given us Tudor as okay, this is everything Rolex used to be. Tudor, reasonably priced, good quality, good looking sports watches. Take Tudor and shut up. And for the most part, we have. I mean, Tudor makes great pieces, and Tudor also has a horological legacy. They've been making watches, important watches, for decades. You know, But Rolex really does come across as a manipulative puppet master, in the marketplace when you think about the maneuvers that they're making with the used market now, the whole shenanigans about, exhibition only watches, the concept of putting things out for sale that nobody can buy. Ferrari, I think, gets away with it. KitchenAid, not so much. Um, Even when I was selling electronics, high-end electronics in the PX system and the audio club system in Germany in the '80s and '90s, even the cheapest audio club manager bought one to show and one to go, because you gotta have inventory to move or else you're not gonna make any money. But Rolex makes a lot of money from a lot of different sources, and, the fact that they're not a profit, you know, seeking company in that sense, being a charitable institution, it gives them a lot of leeway. So I'm hoping that they use these powers for good, you know? It's important to the future of our marketplace, frankly. Mechanical watches are fighting their last battle for validity. Um, think of the candle. People still use candles even though, light bulbs and flashlights exist, but candles are used for different reasons. Watches are also, useful in the sense that candles give off light and watches tell time, but watches are more like candles in that they're romantic and wonderful and charming at the same time as they're useful. Uh, if we manipulate the market in the wrong directions, we could sour people's feeling of, I mean, w in one sense, Rolex being an aspirational purchase is good for the industry because it gives a reason to own a watch beyond just having to tell the time. So I'm really hoping that Rolex uses this marketplace, this program to, help settle this gray market, help stabilize this industry and be good, be a positive force. Jared Lee, how's it going, Jared? Good morning from Australia. Hey, how's it going? Always like to hear where everybody's from. I want an IWC over Rolex. Um, yes. If I had to sell my watches, I would sell my Sansuperi, my IWC. I'd sell it. It would be like one of the last 3 watches I would sell. The Rolex would be one of the first to go. Uh, if only because it's the most liquid probably in the collection. But no, IWC, they have a sense of history. They feel it, and you can feel it in the watch. You know what I mean? IWC takes themselves very seriously, and I like that in a watch company. It's the cleanest non applied dial. It's the cleanest painted, the sharpest looking painted dial in the industry, in my humble opinion. I don't like the Omega Railmaster because I don't like the way that they put on that face. IWC, they just know how to make a painted face look luxurious. They make plain look luxurious, simple and clean. IWC is awesome. I'm a lucky man. Well, as I've pointed out before, I live in a one-bedroom apartment because I spend my money on watches. My kids are adults, and I don't really need a big place, so I'm lucky that I can make that comparison. My IWC to my Rolex, but I recognize that that's not the case for everybody. And then again, there are people who have collections that look at mine and they go, "Yeah, when are you going to get a real watch?" Although the Speedmaster is transcendent. The nice thing about a Speedmaster is nobody can give it crap, as it were. Frankly, if you think about an IWC Pilot, nobody can give it crap either. There are a lot of watches that have earned their bones. Breitling Navitimer. Do an episode on that. We'll talk about like 5 iconic watches better than the Rolex, 'cause, if you're at a party and somebody's got a Rolex and you got a Breitling Navitimer, they're not gonna be able to flex over you. They might be able to flex to somebody who doesn't know watches, but anybody who knows watches would go, "Hey, nice Rolex, but oh, cool Navitimer," you know? But at the end of the day, we're all just watch collectors and everyone's opinion is valid. So the ones who like Rolex, they're entitled to like Rolex. I I own a Rolex myself. But speaking of ownership, that comes down to the last. I shouldn't say last. There are a lot of questions in this thing, but the biggest question is where is Rolex going to get these watches from? Where are they going to get them from? If they go into the open market, like if they just went into Chrono 24 and just bought up all of the used watches there, first off, they're buying close to market. So they would have to rely on a short margin to flip those pieces. Two, they could be Franken. I mean, Rolex would know if these were fakes or Franken watches and the like. But I don't see Rolex, a company that serious and solid, trusting something as ambiguous as random sales to stock inventory for a program that they issued a press release for. You know, Interesting thought. Where are they going to get the watches from? Let's see. Milad Sky. Oh, Uh, we're getting such good conversation. It's scrolling. I missed a couple of comments. Let me go back up. Um, oh yeah, the old boy. How's it going, the old boy? Hello. Well, maybe we love Rolex watches, but Rolex, like brand, is a pirate ship. I've always been amazed that people think it's genius and they're an NGO. That's what I said. Pirates. Well, depending on how you look at it, pirates are NGOs. They're not beholden to any land or flag, as it were. Milad Sky wearing the Longines Hydra Conquest tonight. Longines is really rocking lately. They really are. And what they've always been a great watch company, but for those couple of years after like the early noughts, the 2010s, they were struggling to find an identity within the Swatch Group, I think, and they have. They really have. I'm really pleased with what Longines has managed to do with themselves. Not that they need my approval. Oh, probably I will go for a Seamaster rather than a sub. Less money for equally good watch. Less money for a better watch, Milad. Um, I have a Seamaster GMT. I love it. I have a Mito Ocean Star diver Chrono, which I think is a really, really good watch that gives the Seamaster a run for its money. The Rolex is better than the Mito, yes, but for 2,000 bucks, you're not going to find a better diver chrono than the Mito Ocean Star, in my humble opinion. You know, because it's hard in that space to have a good watch that's waterproof and a chrono and nicely done. And the Mito's titanium too, so it's a really nice piece. But the Seamaster, like I said, I love mine more than I like the Mito. In fact, I love that Seamaster so much, I sold it and then I bought it again. I'm not going to sell it again, obviously. Um, but you can't go wrong with the Seamaster. It's a great watch. It really is. If you wanted to go with an Omega and a Rolex, get a date just because it's classic. I wound up settling on it, not settling, but I wound up getting a date just. I had multiple Rolexes, and I realized like, just one Rolex, keep it real. Date just is classic. Wear it with a suit. Um, and the Seamaster is just a way better diver, in my opinion. So I'm really pleased that I have a Seamaster. Um, and, if you not that you need my approval, but I totally approve of your decision. Let's see. Neil Bailey, how's it going, Neil? Got the new Tissot PRX Court mint face. Ooh, nice and tasty, as it were. See, and that's the beautiful thing about these companies is that they're making watches that are interesting and they're fun and they're worth wearing, and they're not, they're not taking themselves too seriously. Tissot's another company that's really broken out lately and, shown their colors and really reminded people that they're a company that has a heritage and an imagination and a craft and a quality and you know, there really are some companies breaking out. Longines and Tissot are really great examples of it. I don't think Mito's managed to get to the breakout level yet. They're not as recognized, even though they have a relatively deep heritage. But Tissot has reestablished their cred, in my opinion, and so has Longines, in my opinion. Omega is fighting back to its primacy. Um, I think it's gotten to the point where watch people recognize Omega as the better watchmaker. Um, and well, it'll become a Mercedes BMW argument. Some people will say the Mercedes is a better car, but it's more luxurious. Some would say the BMW is a better car; it's more sporty. Uh, what are your thoughts? That's one of the things about watch collecting. It always gives you something you can talk about. Let's see. Hannes, oh, you're wearing your new Timex Seamaster homage. Well, Timex is again another company, but see, they were bought by Citizen and just like Bulova, and both of those companies are crushing it. You know, they're taking this Japanese quality and Japanese movements and putting them into uh, old school brands. Timex. Timex is the New York Times of watches. The Gray Lady, um, Bulova. I mean, they used to be historic, the Accutron, and they still make good watches. So I actually like this trend of these mainstream watches breaking out of their molds and doing interesting things. I think that's what's going to keep people buying watches going forward. I think it is important. It really is. Let's see. Neil Bailey and got a new G-Shock GMW 5000 Happy Time. G-Shocks are fun and cool watches. Can never say anything negative about a G-Shock. They really are great pieces. You know. Anybody thought of how Rolex is gonna where they're gonna get all those watches from they're gonna resell? Are we gonna have to go on a resell pre-owned waiting list? Yeah, we'll get you a pre-owned Submariner as soon as one becomes available, sir. We'll call you in 6 months to 3 years. That would be funny. Pre-owned waiting list. Could happen. Could happen, mark my words. You could see some stores saying, "Well, as soon as a pre-owned sub comes in, we'll sell it to you." So where are they gonna get all those damn watches from? or are they just gonna use the program as a way, like I said, to manipulate the market? We may never see a Rolex watch for sale under that program. What are your thoughts? Hannes, seeing their prices for CPO, they're definitely not settling in the gray market at the moment. Maybe we see the change in the coming months, but in my opinion, it was going to be overpriced. So if they're just using this resale program to take advantage of the gray market profits, I think it'll work in the short run. I don't know if it'll work for them in the long run. And Rolex has always been a long run company. That's the nice thing about being, a nonprofit. It one thing it does give you is it gives you clarity of vision. It gives you the luxury to look farther forward than your competition. So, they may be using it as a money grab, but I really hope they're not. I really hope they're not. I mean, they're smarter than that. Let's put it that way at the minimum. Milad Sky, the GMW 5000 is amazing. Yes, it is. Well, all of those models are really cool pieces, and there's nothing but up. Casio's going to continue to make better G-Shocks as manufacturing tech and um, design tech improve. James Duffy, hey James, I suspect Bucherer set up the program and it was sanctioned by Rolex for a cut. Well, Bucherer already has a program. Maybe Rolex is going to take over Bucherer's program, and that's doable because Bucherer people go to them. They're a chain of stores. There's a Bucherer in every major store. There's one in Frankfurt, so I can get to one in half an hour if I needed to get to one. Um, if they're going to just take over Bucherer's pre-owned program, that could work because Bucherer's already got an established pipeline. They've got inventory on hand, and people take their used watches to Bucherer to sell anyway. So that could work. It's got they're not buying online. These are jewelers in these cities that can take these watches in their hands, you know, at first blush and say, no, we're not interested. Have a nice day. So if they took over Bucherer's program, I could see that working. Yes, I could see that working. But would Bucherer give it up? They would have to be some really sweet things in it for Bucherer, you know? Malad Sky, let's see, just make sure I didn't miss anything there. Yeah, yeah. So James, I think that's a great idea that it could be just them taking over Bucherer's program, but they'd have to really give Bucherer a nice taste or some other thing, maybe a better access to watches. Who knows? Um, let's see. Maybe they will get them. Malad Sky says maybe they'll get them from the people who bought them from Rolex directly or from ADs. Don't think they will buy the watches who've seen multiple owners. Well, that's the other side of the coin. They're saying watches older than 3 years. I'd say once you get past 5 years, you're talking at least 2 owners, you know, unless you really got a dedicated owner. But most people have it and then wear it a little bit and enjoy it, and then they flip it. Um, so yeah, that'd be interesting to see. It really is gonna be curious. They will you don't think they'll buy them? I don't think so either. Romy 360. I heard an interesting idea that Rolex will be selling their display models that did have non-functioning movements, plus AD will buy them from former current customers. Well, that's what we were just saying with the Bucherer thing. But I mentioned earlier in the show, in today's episode, oh wow, we're already halfway through. Um, I mentioned earlier in today's show that's a theory that's already been up and around and talked about on the web. But if they're using, even if they're reworked display product, they're not pre-owned product. And so legitimately they couldn't sell them on the gray market as pre-owned. They would be literally taking shelf stock, cleaning them up and selling them on the gray market at a markup, claiming that they're used watches, which goes against industry standard for shelf product. Normally you mark shelf product down and sell it out the front door. You don't take it back into the back, tweak it, and then put it back out in front and double the price. That's unethical. or half again the price, whatever the market is right now. Let's see. Mike, how's it going, Mike? Hello, I recently bought a Tudor Black Bay ceramic and noticed it's running at -1. Is this something I should be worried about? Isn't Metas supposed to be 0 to 5? Um, the Black Bay ceramic is supposed to be 0 to +5, but -1 is you're gonna have some drift over time, and maybe if it's brand new, I would watch it, but -1, put it this way, -1 is better than +5. And +5 is within Metas. If it was running +5, would you feel as bad? People want their watches to be running fast rather than slow, but -1 isn't something I'd worry about. I'd keep an eye on it. I have a time grapher. I take my watches off after that. I've been wearing them and they're warm, so they've been running for a while, and I put them in. I keep an eye on all my pieces. Um, Partly because I happen to have a time grapher, and it's cool to do that, and partly because you keeping an eye on it, you keep an eye on the amplitude, you see how well it's running, beat error and the like. But I would say keep an eye on it, but -1, I wouldn't worry about it. -1 is close, you're within 20% of the mark. And test it again after you've worn it for a while and it's warmed up and the lubricants are warm and it's the metal parts are all the same size from heat expansion, and put it in the time grapher in body heat, after you've been wearing it for a while and it's been running. You'll get different numbers, guarantee it. Let's see, James Duffy. Yes, I think Rolex is testing the waters by officially partnering with Bucherer. Yeah, that's a great idea, James. Um, and if that winds up being the case, I'll give you a beer, mail you one if I have to. Coupon, good for one beer, or a beer in a maybe I'll put a beer in a box and mail it to you. Mm. Speaking of mailing, I almost forgot. If anybody wants a copy of my novel Cyberchild, I'll send me your email and I'll email you a PDF copy of the novel, and you get a free copy of the book. I'll even write something nice in the email to take the place of a signature in the book. But yeah, if you want a copy of the book, send me an email. I promise not to use it for any nefarious purposes, and I'll send you a PDF copy of my novel. And the funny thing is that it's quite um, very, very, very pertinent today because it's about a young girl who gets infected by nanotech from a company that's experimenting, putting computers in people's brains, and the animal rights people are involved because they've been killing off a lot of monkeys, um, which is exactly what's going on right now with Elon Musk's Neurologic thing. So I wrote the book over a decade and a half ago, so I'm glad to see I called it so well. Um, I even have a low boil war in Europe going on in the book, but I didn't mean to call that. Let's see. Pal, hey, how's it going, pal? Mike, have you wound it by hand to a full wind? Well, that's another thing. Don't overwind, but well, I mean, a modern watch is really hard to overwind. But yeah, wind it up because constant force. The spring does have more inertia at the beginning, um, more energy, potential energy in the beginning, and you will get a different power curve as the watch winds down. So if you just wind it up lightly, it may not give you the same numbers as if it's fully wound. That's an excellent point, pal. Points to you as well. See, I've got such great people in this audience. You all are awesomely cool, smart people, and probably all good looking as well. Let's see. James Duffy, Bucharest's exclusivity is probably limited to a year or two. Well, that could be the case. But then again, Bucharest is pretty exclusive anyway. They're not your I mean, well, at least here in Europe, I don't well actually I've been to the one in they have one in New York, or maybe it was some other posh watch, but I've been to several posh ones. You should see my buying watches in New York video that I shot in July. But yeah, Bucherer, they're high end. They're high end German retail jeweler. So there's already a little bit of a filter there, if you know what I mean. Not your average riffraff isn't going to wander in. Y- People who snatch the Rolex off of someone else's wrist, they're not going to go to a Bucherer and try to offload it. One of the points that was brought up in this whole thing is that means Rolex is going to have to reignite and publicize their stolen and lost serial number list, because if they're elbow deep in the used watch market, they're going to have to track all used watches, if only to ensure that their inventory is clean and doesn't have cloned watches or stolen watches or lost watches in their inventory. So, in one sense, that'll clean the market up just by existing, because it'll eliminate a lot of clones and it'll eliminate a lot of ultra fakes from the marketplace, because it'll be a lot harder to sell a fake Rolex, because the dealers who have marginal Rolexes aren't going to want to sell them if they got to compare them to certified pre-owned Rolexes. It's going to be it's going to be very interesting to see how the next year or two plays out as far as this program goes and the Rolex gray market activity goes. People have been saying that Rolex is becoming more accessible, but nobody's called me yet on my waiting list for the Air King. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Hannes, I heard the theory that you buy, for example, easy to get Rolex, and after 3 years, they buy it back in order that you get the next better Rolex. Well, frankly, that's what car companies do. They'll sell cars to a corporation as fleet cars for 3 years, and they'll buy them all back, and they'll sell them all new cars, and they'll take those cars that they bought back from the corporation fleet, and they sell them as used, or they take the leased cars back after. I mean, in the car industry, it's done a lot. Um, I could see that happening, but watches are such a personal thing. I don't know how many people who would be up for leasing their watch. Some people would probably do it, but then Rolex would need to introduce a leasing program. That would be something I could see people getting into. Pay $300 a month to wear a Daytona for a couple of years. I'd have to do the math. That may not work out. But pay XYZ $100 a month to wear, your favorite Rolex for a few years, and then you have to bring it back to the dealer. If they would do a lease program on Rolexes, that would change the market in a lot of ways too. Because I'd lease a Patek, I'd lease a Breguet, especially if they offered me a 6-month lease. Business model, anyone? Let's see. Oh, X201T, how's it going, my friend? Let's think this through. Buy a pre-owned Oyster Perpetual or buy a semi-perpetual calendar from Breitling. I'd go for the Breitling. An annual. Yeah, yeah. Well, or their semis like every 4 years, right? I believe. You have to change it on the leap year. Um, I'd buy the Breitling anyway, because I pointed it out earlier in the show. There are a lot of companies who make watches that are better than Rolex. Seamaster over the Submariner, or the Omega Globemaster over the Datejust. But Rolex is a force in the industry, and they do make nice pieces. I do like my Datejust. I liked matter of fact, one of my biggest regrets is that I sold my Milgauss. I wish I still had that Milgauss. That was a nice, fun watch. So for all of the arrows we throw at Rolex, they actually do make a good watch at the end of the day, you know? So we have to remember that. And they do build hospitals with their nonprofit money. They actually do public works in Switzerland and stuff. So there's that. But it's gonna be interesting to figure out where they get their watches from. I guess we'll see, because there'll be people giving us anecdotes as it goes through, right? And that's the nice thing about the modern world. People share stories, and we can all enjoy them. One of the reasons that I have this wonderful show that you all lovingly support. I really appreciate all of your support. Tell your friends to subscribe. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. It helps the channel. So let's see. James, Bucherer has 2 locations in Manhattan. I think Rolex is likely to expand the CPO program to watches, watches of Switzerland and their premier ADs. I could see that happening. I was in one of the watches of Switzerland's. I think I was in their headquarters in Manhattan when I did the Patek Philippe electronic clock video. I got to see some really, really cool watches that they wouldn't let me take pictures of. Um, but watches of Switzerland, they're good people. So it'll be interesting though if they bring them in. So they bring them they're going to bring in all the AD programs out of the cold. Be an interesting way to see it happen. Pal, hi Alex. Pete McConville dropped a super interesting video with his take on the Rolex CPO. I will. I will. Was it the? I might have seen it. Was it where he also brought up the talk about using the display only shelf Rolexes? As I mentioned earlier, if they use old display product in this program, then it's fraud because those aren't pre-owned products. That's the big problem with that aspect of the theory is those watches are not pre-owned. Not by so they would have to put some kind of wiggle language in their paperwork, but I read the press release myself. They're saying pre-owned and certified. So it would preclude using display product. If they did, that would be fraud. Or at least really unethical. So I don't think it's going to be shelf product. I don't think it's going to be refurbished shelf product. That's my take. My take's as good as anyone's. It's just my opinion. I'm not an arbiter of anything. He may wind up being correct on this. Let's see. The messages are coming fast and furious. I got to scroll back up a little bit. Okay, here we go. Mike. Hi, pal. I did actually, don't get me wrong. Pal, hi, Mike. Had a few tutors. Got some conversation between the people. That's cool too. James, come to think of it, Rolex investing in a new plant might be more significant than the CPO program. Well, the trouble is that, okay, they build a new plant. Where are they going to find all the new watchmakers to fill that plant? Watchmaking, and they do a lot of machine finishing at Rolex. Okay, it is an assembly line product, but you still need skilled people to put that stuff together and do the final finishing and the like. So where are you going to get the extra 100 watchmakers to up your output by 50,000 watches, 100,000 watches, and you're putting out 1 million a year? I think they're pretty much at their edge for manufacturing capability. I think they're just trying to manage the marketplace, but a new factory would be cool, or modernizing the one they have to upgrade its output and capabilities, see what happens there. Although a lot of manufacturing is going in that direction anyway. My day job, I go to the conferences and the like. I was just at Electronica. Took a lot of, if you want to see those videos on the core technologies, you can go to electronicdesign.com and see. We're getting to the point where even cheap products are going to be made reasonably well because the tolerances and the equipment that manufacture them are going to be just so tight, even at the lower end of the scale. There's no such thing as a cheap CNC machine anymore. You're going to get 1 micron tolerances out of something that the average person can afford to buy. 1 micron's not even 1 micron's not even considered tight tolerances in the modern world. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it all goes because making more watches is one answer. But breaking the back of the flippers and breaking the back of the speculators, that would be something cool. I'd pay money to see that happen. Let's see. Pimpin' Basie 2. Hey, how's it going? Selling unworn watches as pre-owned is a victimless crime, in my opinion. It is a victimless crime. You're absolutely right. But it's still, I won't say it's a crime, but it's still an infraction, you know? The example that I heard today was a great example. Imagine if you're at a supermarket and they're giving away free samples, and you see people eating the free samples, and you see some people even come back for a second sample, and you go up and you just eat all the samples, and you chat with the server while you're eating the samples, and you expect them to bring more samples, and they're like, "You can't do that, get out of the store," and you're like, "Wait a second, you just gave them away to all these people." Um, there are things that are you know, legal and within the rules, and there are things that people recognize as not being right. You know what I'm trying to say? So I'm not saying that this is necessarily a legality issue. I think it's a sportsmanship issue. It's a fair play issue. It's a gentleman's or ladies issue. I don't want to be misogynistic and say, oh, but it's a character issue. You know, you're gonna take shelf product and buff it and then mark it up and expect me to smile as I give you more money than I should? Yeah, it's a victimless crime unless you're the one who's paying the extra money. Let's see. Jonathan Robinson, I take a pre-owned Moser Perpetual over a Daytona any day. Exactly. There are so many really nice watches in the industry that you can buy instead of that. There really are. There's some beautiful pieces out there, and at every price point. I was talking I was waxing poetic about the, Seiko GMT in one of my recent videos. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get a wonderful watch, something that you like and works for you, you know? We're going into the last quarter hour. If anybody has any other topics to bring up, you can, or we can continue in this thread. But just wanted to let you all know that we don't have to stay on this topic. But next week we'll talk about something else. I'm going to do some research on the mid-range companies that are doing interesting things, and we'll do an episode talking about the cool companies that are doing fun stuff in the middle of the road. In fact, I just got my hands on the Blue Planet from Sega Design, and I did a opening and initial impressions. I've got more to talk about it. I'm going to do it in the review, but that's a perfect example of a middle of the road company. The watch sells for about $1,000, and it won the in 2021. It won the award, the Geneva Horological Society's award for the challenge category. Um, Under 3,500 Swiss francs. You don't have to make clones to make cool watches. You don't have to, we don't have to chase Rolex to enjoy horology, you know. That's a great point to make, Jonathan. And several others have made that point as well. X201T, off topic. What's the story of the suit of armor in the background? Well, I've always had a whimsical streak, and that was on display in the window of a gun store. And here in Germany, a gun store is mostly tear gas pistols and air rifles and the like, some crossbows. And this was in the window, and they had it on sale because I guess they were, going to change their window decor. And so I picked it up for €1,000. It's a steel suit. It's not made to wear. It's a display. It's made for display. The legs don't bend very much, but it makes for a nice display. And the ceilings in this apartment are, the nice thing about Europe is a lot of the older buildings have very high ceilings, and it works as far as display in here. And everyone in their house now has like a wall for YouTube and stuff like that. And so all of the interesting stuff in my house is on this wall. So I look worldly and cool and traveled and stuff. The rest of the wall is just like bare stucco and nails hanging out of the wall. No, not that bad, but no. Thank you for the compliment on the suit of armor. I do like him. I haven't given him a name, weirdly enough. And the watch there's a watch on his arm. It's a old Junghans radio controlled. It doesn't work anymore, so I thought it'd be just a nice prop to stick on his arm, and the gold against the steel makes for a nice contrast. Pimpin' Basie 2, pre-owned by Rolex of the armor. Let's see, pal, it was about the CPO really means to sell date just to more casual buyers. Well, there are a lot of 36 millimeter date justs out there in the world that need a new home. Um, and Rolex normally has a policy of replacing everything and refurbishing everything. When I sent my Oyster Quartz there, they replaced the face and everything. Um, and some people don't like that. They like the patina, they like the rounded edges on the, bezel and such. But Rolex doesn't play games with that. They'll replace all of that stuff. So if they're in this CPO, right, if they really do fix everything up and put them like new, heck, I'm depending on the price point, I might buy a 36 date just on a leather strap, you know, from the pre-owned program. If it's true and honest and they really do what we all hope they're gonna do. Let's hope they do what we all hope they're gonna do. His take was different from anyone. It was just to see his take was very different from everyone. Well, there are a lot of interesting takes out there. There are. I don't really have a take. I have hopes. I hope that they're gonna, use their powers for good, as it were, because they can put a big thumb on the scale. So let's hope that they do it, in a positive way. That's all I have to really say about it. I'm not a prognosticator, but I don't think they're going to be selling shelf stock because that's not pre-owned merchandise. Um, they might take over. That's probably the most logical. What James was saying, they're going to, taking over AD's used programs because those were already established acquisition pipelines as well. They're getting a steady stream of watches in through those avenues as well. Be very interesting to see what happens there. Let's see. But pal, I will check it out. Make sure that it was the one I was thinking of. Big Sal. Hey, Big Sal. I think it depends on the condition of the display model. Look at cars. You can buy a new display model as a used car if the mileage is accumulated over test drives. Right. Well, in that case, it's sold for less, right? If the circumstances are such that the used car is sold for more, it brings a conflict of interest issue into it. Or is the dealership deliberately aging these so they could sell them at a higher price on the gray market? You know, like I said, cars are a good example more on the leased side. You companies lease the cars or individual leases the car for 3 years. The car company takes that car back and then sells it as used, but then that's legitimate use. Um, to sell the vehicle that everybody's been test driving for in as a certified pre-owned. Actually, car companies can't do that if I'm not mistaken. They legally couldn't do that because there's no names on the papers. They couldn't say that it was pre-owned. They would have to say it's dealer stock, because they would not be able to demonstrate lineage on ownership of that said vehicle. Any legal people in the audience about that, I would love to know, but I would say that would be they could sell a used car off the lot as, used, but certified pre-owned is a different term than used. Used just means it's been used by people. Certified pre-owned means that someone owned it, it was taken back in and, refurbished and certified. The car on the lot wasn't owned by anyone before they sold it. A leased car was. And that is a big legal difference. But, I don't believe that Rolex is going to be able to sell shelf stock as certified pre-owned. That would be unethical at the minimum. May not be illegal, but it would definitely be unethical. Because 'Cause you're talking about taking a shelf a retail product and then arbitrarily marking it up because it hasn't gone out anywhere, hasn't it stayed inside the building the whole time. So, it's on the shelf, we take it back into the back room, we clean it up, we put it back out, and now it's $5,000 more? Who's the idiot in that conversation? We can't let them, pee on our legs and tell us it's raining. We're the ones spending the money. It's our market, not theirs. They're serving us our desires. We need to make sure that they serve the market properly. We can't reward them for shenanigans. Let's see. James, ultimately, the watch community needs to love and encourage the gray market until prices go over retail. Our individual opinions will swing depending on what we can or cannot get. Well, the gray market is all right when it comes to used product or new product that is being sold at a discount. But when you start getting, speculators and flippers and people who are, like I said, it's like concert ticket scalpers. We may put up with the concert ticket scalper, but we don't like it. It's not. I mean, in a lot of places it's illegal. Some places it is legal. But at the end of the day, it boils down to what I was saying. It's a question of character. It's a question of proper behavior in society. Um, you know, it's eating all of the samples at the supermarket, you know, instead of just taking one. There are things that we tolerate from people, and there are things that we don't tolerate. And legality has something to do with it. It mostly has to do with how we feel about fairness. And what Rolex is about to do, I'm not, depending on how they do it, some people may not perceive it as being fair. And especially when you're talking about a marketplace that's driven by desire, because nobody needs any of the things. Nobody needs this. So when you're talking about a market driven by desire, I think Rolex needs to be very careful. This could turn into a big, big, big debacle for them. Could also turn into something wonderful for them. They could stabilize the market and save the industry, and everybody falls in love with Rolex because they slayed the dragon. Or it could turn out that it gives everybody just one more reason to hate Rolex. I don't know myself. Like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. All I have are hopes, observations, expectations. I was in sales for over a decade. I sold to the American military here in Germany. I've been in every military base from Bremerhaven to northern Italy, Aviano, Livorno, Vicenza. I, I've sold everything from advertising space to pens to beer, and you can't just treat the market with an arrogance. There's a certain level you can get away with, but at the end of the day, the customer has to feel good about the product that they're buying from you. And if they don't feel good about the product that they're buying from you, they're going to eventually buy a product that makes them feel better. And Rolex is playing a dangerous game here because it is rife with opportunities for conflict of interest. Like I said, you could wind up on a waiting list for a used watch. How would that sound? Yeah, I'll put you on a list as soon as we get a used sub coming in. We'll call you 6 months, 3 years. We promise, you know? So let's remember that it's our marketplace. We are the watch community. Let's keep an eye on this, okay? And let's hope for the best, but not be surprised if it doesn't turn out the way we'd like. Let's see. James, I don't think Rolex's CPO program is meant to be a single turnkey solution to curb supply flowing into the gray market, but it is certainly a safe step so they can pull back if it fails. Well, I think, James, like I said, I think if they run it well and they use the pricing that they use, like they could price at the lower edge of the gray market and force the prices to logical levels. They could drive the market. They could because they have a superior product by definition. It's certified pre-owned by the company. So they could, if they were selling better product at a lower price than the flippers and still make a profit, they would marginalize the flippers to a great deal. I'm not saying they're going to eliminate them, but it would drive a lot of the heavy-handed speculation out of the marketplace, I do believe. But time will tell. Time will tell, my friend, my friends. So we're at the top of the hour. As always, I hope you have a wonderful week. Love you all. I'm so glad you took the time out of a busy world to take time with me. And until next week, talking timepieces and horology is always a fun hobby. Tell your friends, please subscribe, at least leave a like. Take care.